Hey there, home buying for women. Welcome back to our second episode in our series where we are talking about our upcoming book for our brand new book club, Home Buying for Women Book Club. And we are so excited about it. And I'm Jennifer Shannon.
And I'm Shannon Conaway, also known as Mortgage Lender Lady.
Yeah, so we have so much to talk about. And if you didn't catch last video, you should definitely do that. But right now, every week we're launching a video where each week we're going to talk about a section of Bola Sokunbi's Clever Girl Finance. So for this video, we are going to talk about section 2 of her book. If you sign up for the book club, just go to homebuyingforwomen.com/book club. And there's an easy button to find right there to sign up for the book club and get your space. I love the way Bola has broken up this book into sections to make it easily digestible and understandable, and you can actually do what she talks about. And so section 1 of her book is called The Start. And we kind of touched on it with the last video where it's all about getting your mind in the right place. Shannon, as we kind of look at an overview of that section 1 and we're talking about mindset, was there anything that stood out to you as you were going through that?
Yeah. So there were a couple things that really stood out to me that I liked. Affirmations. I'm dead set on I'm going to start doing affirmations. And something I thought that was interesting, she said an example of an affirmation she would give was money is attracted to my bank account. Um, that was just one example. And she said she's never had an affirmation that she has declared repeatedly not come true. But I do think that is the power of how we think. I think what we don't necessarily always consider how much ownership we can really take over the environment we're in. That we have the ability to create our environment. If we really believe that we are capable of X, we're going to attract X. We're not going to allow Y and Z into our path if X is what we're going after. So I really liked the psychology behind affirmations. And then I also really appreciated framing how we talk about our goals and debt. For example, hi, this is Penelope. One of her examples was she knows people, or maybe it was her, that doesn't like the word budget. And so rather than saying, this is my budget, because I think that can come with a negative connotation or limiting, not positive. It's
Mhm.
like your goals are positive. What you're
Mhm.
aiming for is positive. So you want to frame the way that you start talking about your budget as something that's positive, not as limiting. So for her, she changed it to plan because she's a planner and deciding where her money is going to be going rather than letting the day kind of carry her away with where her money is going. I thought two of those were huge,
Mhm.
and I took a lot away from those two items. Was there anything specific that for you really liked?
Yeah, well, and I thought with the affirmations, this kind of idea of what you focus on is where your efforts go. It would be great if we could just say, oh, this is how it is, and then it happens. But it's like when you're reminding yourself, it's like putting the positive statements on the mirror, like when you're reminding yourself, oh, yeah, this is how it is. It's a lot easier when you are like, oh, let's go to happy hour. And it's like, wait, if I go to happy hour, money's not flowing into my bank account,
Right.
it's coming out. And so, you're just kind of reminding yourself gently of these things like, hey, is this really getting me to that goal? And we had a really good conversation about in the emotional aspects of money, how we as women, money a lot of times is part of our identity. The clothes we wear, the things we have, we kind of take pride in that. There's some things from culture, there's some things from our history, our parents, and how we take these lessons learned and apply those into our lives today that may not be the best. And so I'm excited about really getting into that with our book club to discuss and kind of stop those patterns and those habits that we've created around money, kind of almost because we just don't even know any better. So there was some really good stuff there. And when I was going through her book, I recalled there was a podcast I'd heard a long time ago from Hidden Brains where they were talking about this study from an economist from Princeton and a psychologist. They had this theory on how scarcity affects our thinking. And they were saying that when we have a significant lack of something, so like in this case being money, when we,
Mhm,
or even just a perceived lack of it,
mhm.
that we become so fixated on it, on that thing. So the thing we become fixated on is lack of money. And that becomes like what we almost, oh gosh, what was the word? Like we almost affirm, like that's the affirmation. It's we have lack
Yeah,
of money, lack of money. And so then we do things that further, it's like a spiral down. We do things that, prove that point that yes, we have this lack of money. So that's why we do this. Oh, I have bad credit
mhm.
because I don't have money.
Right.
And so it's just kind of this cycle. And that's what they talk about is the scarcity mindset.
I appreciate you saying that because sometimes we can get stuck in our own head and we can be in our own way
Hmm.
of accomplishing our goals. And she didn't use the word system, but I think that this was helpful for me to understand that, we are human. And so we are going to have limitations, limiting beliefs. We can participate in things like affirmations to try and change our mindset, reframe the way we talk about it. But another huge way we can level up is even who we surround ourselves with. So if one of the natural patterns that already exist, right? We have patterns in our brain, but then we also have patterns of just the way that we do life. And ultimately, to become wealthy, you have to change those patterns of your lifestyle altogether.
Hmm.
And of course, it starts with mindset, but it also goes into play with who you spend your time with.
Hmm.
And so if you have friends that every Friday they're wanting to go spend 200 on food and drinks, which if you have the play money for that and you've planned for that, then great, right? But I think that may not always be the case for most people. So they end up being a bystander in their experience and not recognizing, hey, this is something that's actually always holding me back from what I'm saying that I want to accomplish. Do my values align with the relationships I have? So I really like that she has you go in and document and identify what are my values, and then are those people do they participate in me cultivating those values that I have around money?
Hmm.
And so I think they say specifically, if you hang out with, 6 entrepreneurs, you're going to be the seventh. The people that you end up spending the most time with are who you're going to become.
Hmm.
And so I think that is one life hack is adjusting your relational systems to make sure that it aligns with your goals.
Yeah, and they've actually done studies where they show that whoever you hang out with, like your brain waves actually start to sync up. And so, like, we are a product of our surroundings and who we choose to put in our path. And that, like, kind of going back to the purpose of this book club, is you're putting yourself in a position with other women who want the same goals as you do in the sense of the financial freedom. And, a lot of this is going to be about setting yourself up to be able to buy a home. And so, just surrounding yourself with that
Mhm.
environment and like great mentors is just such a good start.
Yep.
Like, even if you just start there and have to get to that process for a little bit, I'd say do that before you even start the budget or anything.
Right.
And so I love this idea of like, let's getting our minds right.
Mhm.
And that way we can build that financial resilience and grow that way. So,
And I would like to add, say for example, you're like, I can't find a mentor. I've been looking for a mentor. I know for me, I spent my whole life looking for a mentor, and then the seasons where I had mentors, they were brief. They were like godsends, but they weren't something that were going to walk with me into the next season. And so if you like me have had an experience like that, don't let that get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish. I really appreciated um, what the author said about if you don't have that, you can join groups
mhm,
with other people who are aspiring for those specific changes.
mhm.
And so, don't let that be something that prevents you. If you can't find a mentor, collaborate with other people that are wanting the same thing, just on a friendship level, because you can always take the gold from that friend and that momentum and from that relationship.
For sure. And we have so much like my book, when we get into these meetings, like I don't know if you can tell, but I have so many highlights and notes and sticky notes added into this book because there was so much information that was valuable and we can expound on. So I'm so excited about it. And there were a few things that some big thought shifts I had when going through this section. And that was recognizing our financial belief systems and how to get our minds right around money. I think so many times, I know for me, it was easy to be like, I'll deal with it later.
Mm.
Because as we'll talk about when we get into the finances, when I would do my budget and like for the month and have to look at my money, it was it was not fun.
Mm.
And I did not look forward to it. I knew I had to do it. And at least I got to the point where I was like, okay, I have to do it. But it was only going to happen one night for every month. Like I was not going to spread it out.
Right.
And I just had to get through it.
Yeah.
So, and some people love that. Some people love looking at the numbers and, almost gaming the system.
Right.
How can I save more or do that,
Yeah.
and everybody's wired differently.
Right.
But she is, and what I like about this is there's something to say for all those different
Mhm.
wirings. So there's good stuff.
Yeah, it's important to build out a life system that works for you because that's the only way that it's going to be sustainable and attainable long term.
So
And
true.
so I do think that going through this text will setting aside that time and allowing yourself time to think through how can I practically implement this in my life. I wouldn't say that this is something that you can just audiobook your way through. It's something you need to sit down. Maybe you audiobook it while you go for a walk, but then you come back to the table and you sit down and you have to break it down and follow those steps to make sure that it's something that will last for a lifetime.
Yeah, and one of the things I thought of when going through this section on
Mhm.
getting your mind right was she has this line, "Your spending habits make you rich, not your salary." And that is so true. And I remembered, so when I was in college, I waited tables and I waited tables in a really nice part of town. And it was just a simple little restaurant, but we would have some well-to-do people come through. And every Saturday, the same gentleman came in and my manager, I remember him asking one day saying, "How did you get so wealthy?" And his response was so simple. And he just said, "I didn't find places to spend all my money." And it was just like that, like even just starting there, and that was his mindset, is it was like everything wasn't an opportunity. It was almost like everything around him saying, spend here was almost like a threat. And so, I mean, I don't think he was taking it, I don't know that he was taking it that extreme, but it's like if you look for places to spend your money, you'll find it. If
Right.
you look for places to save your money, well, then you'll be able to save it.
Right.
So many big thought shifts to go through on that section. And
Yeah.
it's so many good things to take from it.
I love that. Was there anything specific for you where your mindset began to shift? What was it for you where it began to shift and where you actually were able to implement um, these types of strategies like mindset, influence, affirmations? Did it happen all at once? Or was it something that happened gradually? And what was the initial catalyst that made you begin jumping into this transformation?
So it really wasn't until my early to early 30s,
Mhm.
where I realized like I just like things weren't getting better. And I was in the credit card debt, like all the things. And it was just I knew I wanted to own a home. And I mentioned it in the first one. I've had my real estate license for almost 19 years. So I was helping countless people buy and sell homes. And
Mhm.
just because of the industry I was in, I was kind of ashamed because I hadn't done it myself.
Mhm.
And so I was in this world where I almost felt like an imposter. But even beyond that, I got to a point, I had a daughter and I wanted to have a home for us. Like
Yeah.
we were renting, it was always someone else's home. We found ourselves in fortunate positions where we had great landlords and it was a great setup. But we didn't have she didn't have a yard to play in and I wasn't doing anything to build equity. And so all that was getting thrown away every
Mhm.
month. I don't know that there was one exact thing where I was like, "Oh, this is it. It needs to change." I think it was just a series of things where I was like, "Hey, this isn't great. This isn't great. This isn't great." It's nowhere where like kind of going to the values that there was something in there where I think I started to get in touch with what those values I wanted to have
Yeah.
of being a good financial example for my daughter and having a place to call my own where I could have family come and feel
Mhm.
feel good about the space I was bringing them in and have that warm, comforting, inviting place for them. For me, I was never
Mhm.
quite 100% settled.
Yeah.
And, I didn't put pictures on the walls or anything like that. And so it just didn't quite feel like home. And for me, that was something that was really
Yeah.
important to me. And so then it was just like, okay, I'm done with this. And I think one thing that did help me out a lot that maybe started to get me thinking in the right
Mm.
path was I did meet with a financial planner and I had one for a little bit and I had no money. But I was told you should meet with a financial planner even if you don't have money. And I was like,
Mm.
well, this is ridiculous
Yeah.
because I just have debt.
Mm.
And so, but I did. And to his credit, he told me to read Smart Women Finish Rich, which is another book I want to bring to the book club, by the way. I think probably looking at that, and one of the big things, we'll actually mention it in the next video, was understanding like the almost magic around that concept of
Mhm.
compounding interest. I had never heard that term before.
Mm.
And then being early 30s and then kind of looking at the math going, "Oh my gosh, how many things have I wasted money on that
Mhm.
had I not done that could have invested better?" Like even Bola mentions the purses in her story about
Yeah.
spending money on purses and instead of investing, maybe it was Amazon. Was that the story? Instead of investing in Amazon, she bought the purses, and she was like, "If only I had bought Amazon instead of that Chanel or Chloe," whatever the purse was. Yeah, Chanel, okay. It just kind of all came to a head
Mm.
at some point, and I don't know what that exact catalyst was.
It almost sounds like sphere of influence was always there,
Mhm.
kind of helping you recognize the difference.
Mhm.
And you were like, "I'm unsettled.
Mhm.
My sphere of influence is doing this," because this was your work. You
Mhm.
were helping people achieve, homeownership every day, but you were like, "But I'm still here." And
Mhm.
so, fortunately, you had the sphere of influence to kind of it made it painful enough
Mhm.
to where you were like, "I'm gonna have to do some mindset shifting,
Mhm.
some patterns in my life I'm gonna have to shift if I'm going to then come over to the other side."
That's a really good
Which
point, yeah.
which I think if you work backwards, recognizing these things, if you can look at your life and kind of in a non-judgmental way, get curious and ask yourself these questions, you can you can really rebuild your life. I really appreciate the story because in reality, that's how most of us are going to experience it.
Mhm.
But if if you are someone who is self-disciplined enough, you can grab a hold of these concepts and
Mhm.
start working away at them in a way that fits your values and what you're trying to grow towards.
I love that. That's such a good connection you made. So I think that kind of wraps up our quick overview of
Mhm.
section one of the book. And if you want to join our book club, we would love to have you. Just go to homebuyingforwomen.com/book club. And I'll add a link to the comments and description in this video. And there you'll see a button that easily says, click here to join the club. It'll take you to a Zoom page where you can reserve your spot. And so we can't wait to have you there. And then also I've got a link there to buy the book. So if you want to do that, you can get it. We would love to have you and can't wait to see you in the next video.